So here's the hood. I just finished stitching the hem, the hood hem. Okay, this is what it looked like inside. Okay, then I did a little steaming. I ironed it. I even ironed the seam back here too, trying to get rid of the puckering. So now your next step, you're going to pin your hood to the neckline of your the body. Okay, you look for your center front notch. You're going to place the hem part to the center front. Then you're going to pin them. Let me grab a pin, some pins. So here is my center front. Okay. Then you're going to look for the hood. There's a notch. That's going to be your shoulder notch. You're going to line those up. You're going to pin those. Then your neckline should fit. The rest of your neckline should fit from that part. So you can put 1 or 2 pins. It's up to you. You just want to keep it together in place like this. Then you're going to go around the rest of the neckline. You should have your center back hood. There's a seam there. Okay. So here's a double notch on your center back neck. And then here's your back hood seam. Make sure this seam is right in the center of these 2 notches. So right in the middle of it, you're going to place that in the center of that 2 notches. Then the rest, you should lay flat. You're just going to pin them together. And then we're going to go around to the other side. Should have a shoulder seam here because we have one on the other side. You're going to pin that. And your neckline should fit. Then you're going to come around to your center front. So when you have your center front with the hood hem, make sure they just overlap each other just by 1/8, because when you sew them, it ends up pushing it. So if you overlap by 1/8, and when you sew the seam allowance, it should meet up. See, I overlap by 1/8. Then when I sew the 3/8 seam allowance, it should meet exactly. Okay. And you should pin the neck, the rest, just pin the rest of the neck. You can put 1 pin or 2 pin, whichever you like. See how I match 1/8? I overlap just 1/8. Then when I sew 3/8 seam allowance, they will meet exactly the way it needs to be. Okay, so you're gonna sew 3/8 seam allowance are the whole circle of the neck. Best thing to do is start from the back armhole seam or center back. Don't start in the center front. Okay, it works really well. If you start in the center back, you're gonna sew in circle, 3/8 seam allowance, and then you're gonna do the zigzag. So here I just finished sewing the neckline with the hood. And then remember, I talked about overlapping just a touch in the front, and then when I stitch here, it meet right exactly, right on meeting each other. So now I'm going to turn this around. And then flip the hood. Okay, so now the sweatshirt is pretty much done. Okay, so your next step is to get your cuff and your waistband ready. So you have 2 cuffs and a waistband in the rib fabric. Make sure you notch them. Okay, make sure you notch your cuff and notch your waistband. You should have a center front, a size waistband notch, and a center back notch. Double for the center back, side seam get one, and the center front get one. Take the pin out of the pattern. And then look for your fabric. There should be a right side and a wrong side. The higher texture on the rib is the right side. So place your right side and right side together on the waistband. And you're going to pin that together. And pin that together. And then you're going to sew single needle 3/8 seam allowance. Then you're going to do the same thing on 2 of the cuff. Make sure you place the right side together like this. Okay, right side together. So you're going to sew 3/8 seam allowance on each cuff. Okay, 3/8 seam allowance, 3/8 seam allowance, and the waistband 3/8 seam allowance. Then you're going to press your seam open, and then you're going to fold them in half like this. Okay, so let's join these first, and then we're going to pin it to the sweatshirt.